Hello.
Hello.
That almost worked. We need to be more in sync. Oh, actually, I think I'm gonna artificially sync that in post. There you go. The magic of post production. So,
Perfect.
hello, Sunny. Hi, how are you doing? Hi, everyone. Welcome to Scary Talk episode 79. Can you believe it? That's
I
way
can't
too
believe
many.
that. That's a
We shouldn't be
lot.
here anymore. Ew. Let's give this podcast to someone else. We're tired. We're old. Like,
Time to pass it on to the next generation of scary talkers.
not like we're tired. I know, like we're tired, but just more like the concept of us is just tired. Like we
Oh my
get it.
god.
One of them
Can
is
you
gay and
imagine?
funny. The other one's a genius.
You know what's funny though is that just based on listening to the podcast, I so doubt that is what you would get from. I don't even know what my persona would be. It would be like the other one is like incoherent.
Some incoherent child that was brought on after the last one left or something.
Literally, they're like, "Is this Shannon's 8-year-old daughter?"
I can't. Uh Anyway, hi everyone. Episode 79. We got some spooks for you today, as always. But before that, Sunny, how are you doing?
You know, I got a good night of sleep last night, and the people that I work with, you could say, have really just gone above and beyond recently. I'm enjoying work. I'm happy to be alive. I have a 1-week break coming up next week, and
Ooh.
I cannot wait to do nothing and sit in my bed and refuse to go outside. Oh my
And
gosh,
watch
I'm
all
excited.
6 Resident Evil films. Am I right? I'm sending this to you. I have the DVDs.
I'll really leave that one to you, Andre. I'm gonna find a different ultra camp bad series to binge my time on. So how
Uh,
are you, Andre?
I'm good. And speaking of alternatives to can I just talk about this for a second?
Mm.
There are like full-on studio houses that make mockbusters, that make films that are meant to look exactly like a big blockbuster that comes out that year, but way cheaper, and they're kind of meant to fool moms who are trying to buy their sons like the new Transformers movie, but instead they end up okay. I was at the Dollar Tree the other day. The Dollar Tree, I low-key stand the craft section, such a good craft section. I love crafts. Anyway, I was at the Dollar Tree the other day, and they have this DVD bin, right? And me being a movie aficionado, I approached the bin and I found some like okay movies that were like old from like actual big studios. Okay, but the rest of them were all from these mockbuster studios, and I dead ass found a movie. Have you seen Bumblebee? Bumblebee with Haley
Yes,
Steinfeld.
yes, I
Okay,
have.
girl.
That already is a mockbuster. It does not need.
There was a DVD with Bumblebee, basically a Bumblebee ripoff on the cover of it called Hornet. I can't. I can't. And
How
I
is
was
that
like,
real? You have to buy it and see what's on it, though. The thing is,
I should have bought it. I kind of regret not having done so. Like, dead ass, they were like, yeah, like, we'll just, Hornet. Like, that works, right? We can just call it that. Like,
oh my god, I can't believe that's real, though. Now I just want to know what's on it. That's so funny. Uh,
you know what? I might just like look up the plot, but I'll tell you about it later. But listen, so there was Hornet. There was also Titanic 2, which in case you haven't seen, I actually did read the plot of this one. Titanic 2. No, Jack's ghost doesn't come back, but it's like 100 years later. It's made by one of these like cheap studio houses. 100 years later, a ship called Titanic 2 tries to sail again, and what you
Shut
guess?
up.
It
Shut
sinks.
up. That's so funny. Oh my god.
Like, I can't. I need
Dude,
a
I'm just trying
Titanic
to
trilogy.
envision, like, when you watch it, is it just like a low budget, like, shaky camera, someone chasing someone else, like, around a beach, and they're like, look, it's the Titanic 2.
Basically, it's not even shaky. Like, I've seen mockbusters. It's not even shaky camera. It's more like
Mm,
cheap camera, even if it's good camera work, and really cheap CGI. So I
mm,
can't wait to see Hornet because that's a very CGI heavy movie, I'm sure. And so it's all gonna
yeah.
look like every character is gonna be made up of like 16 polygons, and that's it. Like, it's gonna be like it's like Mario 64, like Nintendo 64 realness. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's
that's what
so
they're gonna be
funny.
serving.
Wow, someone
And
should make a documentary about mockbusters. I feel like that'd be really funny to be behind the scenes of one of those. Like, what is the life of someone who makes mockbusters? That's such a
not
funny thing.
Not even that. What's the life of the actors that act in those movies? Because I'm
Yeah.
sure they all go to LA with the hopes and dreams of becoming like an A-lister, but they end up being a what,
No,
D-lister? Like, what is
exactly.
this?
And then you're forced to admit that like your life's work is going towards deceiving moms in Dollar
I
Tree.
know. You know what the worst part? Okay. Also, I wanted to point out this didn't just come out. Mockbusters are done quick, and that just speaks to how cheap they are. Bumblebee came out in 2018. Hornet also came out in 2018, just a couple months later. If anything, I feel like sometimes they get the scripts from someone, from some insider before the movie's even released, and they're like, okay, well, let's let's copy their homework, but make it seem like we didn't, and like they make the movie. It kind of come out almost at the same time. It's
Oh
insane.
my god. I'm trying to
Um,
imagine too someone like has a copy of the script and they just make a post on Craigslist. Bumblebee script $200.
I
It's
can't.
so mock.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Speaking of leaked scripts, so recently I went to see a movie. Yesterday actually, I went to see a
Yes, so
secret.
you can see movies now. That also I just want to
Yes.
celebrate because we have been I say. I just feel like I've heard you so excited about this for a long time.
Yeah, okay, well, no. Actually, those are two different things. So I want to talk in a second about the fact that my local movie theater has reopened, and I'm actually going to be going to a movie later today. I'm really excited, with precaution, of course, and my mask. However, what I was actually talking about was that yesterday I went to a movie theater that is not my local theater at all. It's kind of far out, but I needed to go there because there's a secret screening of a movie happening, and I can't tell you what it is because I signed an NDA, dead ass.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
But what I can tell you is that yesterday I watched a major studio release that isn't coming out until about mid next year. That is very, very big. I
What?
was not told what I was watching until it was about to start by one of the producers.
You're kidding
And
me.
I'm not kidding. I am not kidding. When I say major, I mean major. And again, I can't say what it is, but it was
Wow.
good. And it was, we were the first audience in the world to see this. The producer told us that, and also it was pretty evident by watching the film because some of the CGI was unfinished. And this is a
Whoa.
major studio film. And so
Whoa! Andre, you'd best know in like a year I'm going to be checking in about this again. This is the same as the other story that you told me where I like could not tell anyone about it and then yeah, okay.
yeah.
Anyways. You have so many classified stories, Andre.
Wait. What are you talking about? What was that?
The other story involves a celebrity whose last name starts with A.
Oh, yes.
Sorry,
Correct.
Jennifer Aniston.
Listen, all I can say is I'm kind of like the equivalent of a B-list actor when it comes to Hollywood insiders. I'm a B-list insider. That's all I can say. Like I low-key kind of get into these things that are like very much sometimes film or celebrity related that are just kind of dope and kind of just come my way, and sometimes I look for them, sometimes I don't, and they just kind of happen, and basically I'm better than
I
everyone and
fucking
I'm
hate
low-key
you.
famous.
I hate you so
Like
much. You know
no.
who you are right now? You're like, I was literally supposed to be in the video.
Oh
That's
my
you
god,
right
that's
now.
me. I'm that TikTok. Like, oh my god, no. Oh my god. Yeah. Have you seen that TikTok of like they use that audio and it's like some other peach and they're talking about the peach that Timothy Chalamet's
Yes!
boyfriend
Yes!
fucked and Call Me by
Yes!
Your Name.
So funny! So funny!
Anyway, no. Yeah. The reality is the tickets for that actually weren't like super hard to get. There are like sites out there that will like they recruit people for screenings of movies because all movies require test audiences. Well, or I should say, applying for the tickets wasn't hard to get, but there's always wait lists for
Dang.
these things because obviously everyone wants to do that. So what I did get lucky on was actually getting the ticket itself. But I mean, applying is
Dang,
pretty easy.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
really surprising that they test audiences in like Pawtucket, Wyoming, where you live. That's like really weird.
Yeah,
Because don't you
it's
think they
insane,
test
right?
audiences like in
I
some
know.
big metropolitan area or
I
something?
know. But, I mean, me and my chickens are happy to be invited to anything, to be frank. So I loved it. I actually did like what I ended up watching. I took my brother with me. He was very glad that I took him. And
Mm.
we were actually given a survey at the end. And by how detailed the survey was, I assume that, especially because some of the movie isn't really finished, that they probably do have time and will use the surveys to possibly make changes to the film. So
That's so
I can I'm
interesting.
gonna definitely watch this film when it actually comes out, and I am gonna be surprised if they make. It's gonna be super cool if they end up making changes based on what we said. Like that's awesome.
Wait, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
When you go to watch it next year, you should take me. I think that wow.
Yeah, and I said some pretty specific things in my survey that I mean they're really really specific. So if those end up being changed, I'll be like, oh my god, I changed the film, like dead ass. So I mean, yeah, reshoots happening all the time. For all we know, they could take that info and maybe reshoot some shit to make audiences like the movie more. I mean, we were
That's
a
really
test audience
cool.
after all.
Yeah, you
So
should have said like, "Wow, the CGI looks kind of bad." That should have been your only comment.
where did the budget go on this? Yeah. Yeah, totally. Anyway, so but yeah, my local movie theater reopened. Excited about that. Shoot, I thought it was never gonna happen. I was kind of surprised when I saw it just online. I was checking last night, like something random, and I just came across that. I was like, "What? Why did no one tell me?" So, uh, yeah, my local Kentucky theater has reopened. Anyway, I'm fine. Thanks for asking. We are talking about new the new world order. That's what we are talking about.
Yes,
Um, uh, yeah, let's get spooky. Let's get into this. So, for those of you who
absolutely.
don't know, Sunny, what's up with the new world order? Give us some background.
Okay, I can give us some background. Before I give background, though, do you mind if I tie up some things from last week
Oh,
with
please.
the
Yes, yes, yes.
CIA? Okay, so basically, I ended up on this ultra tangent rabbit hole of sketchy things the CIA has done that they have now released official documentation showing, oh wow, the CIA really did cover that up. So I did some research and went down this rabbit hole about sketchy released CIA documents that show some of the terrible things that they've done. And I'm just gonna go for it. And it's been happening for a long time. There's some older ones and some newer ones. But one of the older ones is happened during the Vietnam War, which, if you remember, was in the late 60s.
Yeah.
And
Spill the
it's
tea,
the
queen. Get us killed.
I mean, okay, so it's the My Lai massacre. So the My Lai massacre was a mass murder of unarmed Vietnamese civilians by U.S. troops, and it happened on March 16, 1968. Now, somewhere between 340 and 500 people who were unarmed were killed by U.S. soldiers. They don't even know the exact number.
Wow.
Yeah, and Victims of the massacre included men, women, children, and infants. Some women were gang raped and their bodies were mutilated, and some of the folks who were raped were also children as young as 12. So basically, the CIA had this documented and then did nothing about it and actually covered up the document. And when it was leaked, 26 soldiers were charged with criminal offenses, but only the platoon leader was convicted. Only one person out of 26. So he was
Okay.
found guilty.
Wait, you know what's insane to me about this? Like, if the CIA goes to such, like, I mean, like, they must go through some trouble to, like, cover these things. Why fucking document them in the first place then? Like, I
No,
mean, maybe,
exactly.
maybe they have to for intelligence purposes. Like, maybe you kind of have to document what you did wrong to know how to hide it. Maybe it's something like that, but it just seems to me that like if they really wanted to cover this up, they would just not document something like that, like a war crime, you know?
Well, no,
Um,
I think that what that tells us is that they probably documented it knowing that it would be covered up, right? Like, otherwise, I think
okay.
they would have tried to avoid it more. So the odds are that they just had to document, like, everything they did, and it's like, well, we can't just say that for 3 days we were dicking around in My Lai, so we're just gonna have to tell them that we, like, killed a bunch of people. And they probably gave some kind of justification, like, we weren't sure if they were, disguised informants or something. I don't know. I would actually have to
Yeah.
look through more. But, yeah, and it was documented and then covered up, which is, just totally unthinkable. So only one person was convicted, and he was originally given a life sentence for killing 22 people, but he actually only served 3.5 years under house arrest. So,
Hmm.
yeah, so we have hundreds of people killed, raped, etc., and one person convicted who's on house arrest for 3 years. So, Um,
Cool.
yeah, and I mean, actually, I took a Korean War class this spring where we did a lot of reading on things that would happen during the Korean War, which was in the early 50s, so like about 15 or 20 years before this. Um, and just you run into very similar stuff that happens. The really sad thing about war is that it's legal killing, right? It's the only time when killing is legal is when you're in a uniform and you kill someone else who's in a uniform. But then you'll have people who disguise themselves as civilians, right? And then you start to get into these weird gray areas of people. Also, you have ultra traumatized soldiers killing when they shouldn't be, and it's not properly prosecuted because you're in the middle of a war. And it's so, I mean, that almost humanizes it, which I'm not trying to do is the thing. It's just so disgusting and completely awful. Yeah, so this was covered up by the CIA. Thanks, CIA. I'm gonna say not my CIA.
Cool.
And so that's just one example. And then I have two more things.
Okay, this document eventually uncovered by them or leaked?
I'm pretty sure it was leaked. Let me see.
I would
here.
think so. There's no fucking way they would disclose these the way they disclose, for example, the ones about what was it, astral projection or something like that. Like, I feel this is heavy.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think it was leaked and publicized through the media.
Was it the WikiLeaks situation?
Maybe. I mean, I think so. It says the American News Sheet and Trident.
No idea, but I bet it was leaked.
Yeah, I would be willing to bet it was leaked. And then there was an investigation, but it still doesn't look like... Oh. And it looks like in the accompanying investigation after the leak, more people were charged with crimes. And of 203 who were charged with crimes, 23 were convicted. We can only hope that they got proper time because it's not listed here. Yeah, I'm realizing the importance of the media as we go over some of this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, in what sense? What do you mean?
Just that I always remember reading when we would talk about the US political system, how the media was important as like a watchdog. But I never realized, seeing it now, it makes a lot more sense. It's like, oh, wow, this stuff wouldn't have been uncovered unless X and X reporter had published it in the New York Times or whatever, I
mean, true, but also I feel like sometimes, if anything, the media helps hide things. Maybe sometimes almost unbeknownst to them, but I don't think so. Like, I think sometimes they will willingly highlight some things over others as that means to cover up something else. So
Totally. Well, that's the terrible thing when you have media that has a certain agenda, too.
Right.
Which is true. I mean, that's the thing. It's true of all news sources, I would say, that there's some kind of, belief system in place behind it. But you would just hope that if enough media sources are getting their hands on information, that at least one of them would find reason to publish it if it's something important like this.
The other day I was actually looking up, what's the least biased news organization, and Reuters seemed to rank very high in a lot of lists. So I guess that's where I'm getting my news now. Speaking of news, Trump has COVID.
Yes.
Dude. Dude. Some people, by the way, think that that's a cover-up for the new Melania audio that leaked. I don't know if you listened to it.
Oh no! What's the new Melania audio?
It's basically an audio from summer 2018, October 2018, of her. There's an ex-friend of hers that leaked it. She had phone conversations with Melania, and now they're no longer friends, and I guess she leaked the conversations. And shitty friends. And one of the audios was Melania saying, they want me to focus on the Christmas decorations, but who cares about Christmas? Who gives a fuck about Christmas? But then I do the decorations, and then they tell me, by the way, I'm sorry for my terrible Slovakian accent, but I think she's Slovenian, actually. Oopsie. And she says, and I do the Christmas decorations, but then they tell me, well, what about the children in cages? Oh, please give me a fucking break. It's crazy how, she sounds in that audio just like the lady who impersonated her in like the Late Show with like Stephen Colbert. I think her name is Laura Benanti. She's a comedian. She sounds just like
You're
that.
like,
But
Laura Benanti doesn't sound like Melania. Melania sounds like Laura Benanti.
I know, it's just crazy because like in the sketches that she would do about Melania, she would say things like that, like, "Oh, give me a break." It's just really funny that that's actually how Melania talks, because I'm pretty sure that it is Melania Trump on the tape. And yeah, she basically saying like they wanted me to do the decorations, but when I do the decorations, they tell me that I'm not focusing on important things like the children in cages at ICE that need to be reunited with their families. But it's like, give me a break. Which one do you want me to do? There's also the media things that I agree with my husband or that I support him, or that I don't tell him enough things to change his mind. But I can't change his mind. And I'm like, I understand. I bet you can't. So
Totally.
that's the audio. It's kind of insane.
Yeah. Honestly, on the one hand, I'm a big, based on the way we met Andre, I'm a big fan of knowing when information is rightfully seized or not, right? Like this is a conversation that was like a personal vent, which is why it kind of sucks that it was leaked. That said, and I get that she's under a lot of media pressure and why that would suck. That said, though, girl, you're the one who chose to marry him.
True, but then to that I rebut, she just wanted a sugar daddy. She never wanted to like go to the White House and like deal with this mess.
That's true. I honestly feel like she should have just gone for a divorce and tried to get what she could once he was president, so that she could live her life with Barron. I
don't think she realized how kind of encaged, no pun intended, her life would be in the White House. And so I think when she was first helping her husband run, she was like, I guess this is just like a thing. And I think she might have even thought he was never gonna win, and they were just doing it for publicity, which just means more money and more luxury for her. And then they won, and her whole world came crumbling down, I bet, because I from what I hear, she hates having to live in the White House, like a prison.
Totally.
So
also with their so both Melania and Trump were diagnosed with COVID, but their young son Barron was not. And I find that so sad. Like, is Barron getting enough hugs? Is he just with the nanny 24/7? Is that what's going on?
I mean, I think he already was. So honestly, I'd say poor
and maybe
kid.
that will be
probably
better than him than dealing with his actual parents, to be honest. So.
Oh my god. I mean, from what I hear, I love that now. This is just a podcast now. From what I hear, like Melania very much loves his son. It's more that like Trump is very much a distant father. Who would have thunk? But
really?
But I mean, yeah, whatever. So
that's some family separation. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, if you don't believe
that's
that, ask Tiffany Trump about that. Anyway, where were we?
CIA terrible things. Okay, I just have two more things that I can try and speed through before we do the New World Order. But the CIA tried to do an experiment where they would convert cats into spies so that they could spy on Russia. This is in the 60s. And they called it Project Acoustic Kitty. Spoiler alert, cats do not train well enough for that, and it failed. This is what your taxpayer dollars are going to, by the way. Project Acoustic Kitty. But some of this is actually pretty ugly. So, in one case, they split a cat open to put batteries inside them and wired them up, making what the person who's testifying about this calls a monstrosity. Definitely some kitty rights problems here. Beyond just how funny it is that they tried to do that. But yeah, so I just thought that was funny and terrible that they would do that. And the craziest one, well, not the craziest one, but another terrible, terrible one is Project Northwoods. So in an official like document that was basically making recommendations to the administration in the 80s to JFK, it said, hey, we're having these issues with Cuba. Here are some options. And option 3 says quote, remember the main incident could be arranged in several forms, : So they say, basically, we could do some kind of fake terrorism, and they give several options. They give 2 main options here. A, we could blow up a U.S. ship in Guantanamo Bay and blame Cuba. B, we could blow up a drone. This is me reading off of the original CIA report, by the way. Their exact words. B, we could blow up a drone, unmanned vessel anywhere in the Cuban waters. We could arrange to cause such incident in the vicinity of Havana or Santiago as a spectacular result of Cuban attack from the air or sea or both. The presence of Cuban planes or ships merely investigating the intent of the vessel could be used as fairly compelling evidence that the ship was taken under attack. They're literally saying, okay, so Cuba's going to send out these like innocent ships just to see what's going on, and we're going to say that they were attacking. And the U.S. could follow up, this is the other quote from them, the U.S. could follow up with an air-sea rescue operation covered by U.S. fighters to quote-unquote evacuate, they literally put in quotes evacuate, remaining members of the non-existent crew. Casualty lists and U.S. newspapers would cause a helpful wave of national indignation. This is all written in an official document recommended to admin by the CIA. So that's their...
I cannot believe that. What the fuck?
Yeah. Like...
Wow. Damn, dude.
Yeah. Luckily, it was JFK at the time, so he rejected it. But you can see how a president, I don't know who that would be, might take this kind of a recommendation depending on what they wanted to do. So
right.
Yeah, so basically, the deeper we get into these release documents, the more I understand why conspiracy theories exist. Because holy shit, is our government sketchy.
Precisely. So, speaking of, and even kind of higher level conspiracy theory, give me some background on New World Order.
Yes. Okay, so getting into our actual point. Thank you for giving me... Thank you for all that, y'all. That was crazy. So, New World Order. 1966, a woman named Mary Davison publishes a book called The Profound Revolution, which is sort of like the basis manifesto for what the New World Order is. So she talks about how the New World Order is a society that hides in plain sight, and real-life institutions, such as the Federal Reserve, the Council on Foreign Relations, and the U.S. government, sort of operate together as fronts for an international banker shadow establishment, basically like a secret society that's kind of operating these things, thinking like, puppet type deal. And that essentially they're all communist infiltrators who are eventually looking slowly to spread their tendrils and take over the world for a new globalist establishment that is most likely socialist or communist. And it's also sort of paired with there are other books that are listed here. None Dare Call It Treason, The Red Fog Over America, and Pawns in the Game, which are other books released in the 60s talking about communist infiltration. And also the possibility of a World War III. So then in 1971, again, there's a big Red Scare, right? So a lot comes together, and essentially there's more talk about how organizations like the Council on Foreign Relations might be actually led by some kind of invisible global power elite. And this is released in another book called None Dare Call It Conspiracy. So basically there's some books like setting the stage for this. There's a couple more listed here. The Turner Diaries in 1978, A Perfect Name for Your Pet in 1983, and then, this is a big one, in 1991, President George H.W. Bush gives a speech to Congress detailing the possibilities for global cooperation and internationalism in the post-Cold War world. He includes this quote, "We can see a new world coming into view, a world in which there is the very real prospect of a New World Order."
Oh!
Yep. And Bush's words basically become the catalyst for what we hear now as the New World Order theory, in that they're finally beginning to take their plans into the public a little bit in the form of sort of globalist theory in order to advance their aims of globalization and like a sort of a new world order, right. Believe it or not. And so this continues. In 1993, Bill Clinton signs what's called the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act, which is a gun control act, and a lot of folks start to talk about how gun control is a step towards a one world government. And basically there are more and more developments and connections being made between the Illuminati, Freemasons, and even some organizations that date back to the 1700s, like the Round Table Order, which I've sort of looked into a little bit more. Oh, well, sorry. The Round Table Order is from the 1900s, but Freemasons
Okay.
go way back. And basically, lots of different organizations that have been operating sort of independently, some of them more conspiratorial than others, such as the Illuminati, which is like, debated as whether it's real or not. Um,
Mm-hmm.
all coming together and behind this grand scheme, essentially. Um, yeah, so that's
Cool.
my summary. Yeah.
I love that. That's lit. So basically, there's like a secretly emerging totalitarian world government that we need to look out for. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So, if we were worried enough about mirrors that have been used for secret rituals, fear not, because our very government is rising to put us in chains and do the same to the whole world. So, honestly,
Dude.
though, if Jeff Bezos wanted to right now with his money, couldn't he?
Honestly, I mean, yeah, because I'd be like, just pay me and I'll do whatever. Like,
That's the thing.
yeah. Want to put me in chains? Sure, dude. That'll be $1 million. Like, to him, that's chump change, and I'll be like, sure, you got it.
He'd be like, here's the
Um,
equivalent of $10. Buy something nice for yourself.
Basically,
Yeah.
well, thank you for that, Sonny. As far as secret groups and secret organizations that meet in secret places, I have a very secret one to talk about, and that is the Bilderberg group. So the Bilderberg group are technically the Bilderberg meeting is really what it is a meeting of people. It's an annual conference that was established in 1954, allegedly to foster dialogue between Europe and North America for peace purposes. The group's agenda basically is to prevent another world war, and they've been meeting every year since 50s to ensure this outcome. However, in more modern times, well, originally that was their intent. Now it's a lot more about kind of building a consensus around free market Western capitalism because, Europe and North America both participate in that kind of system. And since they're not really concerned about a third world war, now the purpose of the meeting is a lot more about, well, how can we keep capitalistic interests around the globe, safe and healthy?
Mm.
And they basically meet every year to discuss that, which, is all great and dandy and whatever. Who cares? However, it's the fact that no transcripts, absolutely anything about these meetings, nothing is released to the public that is really sketchy because these are really, really big people, heads of state, huge corporation owners that meet. And I don't know, like any other time, any other time when a head of state does anything kind of grand or has some kind of meeting, some piece of information about that is released to the public via a transcript or a press release or something. But these meetings are completely secretive. The like okay, from what I understand, the purpose of keeping these meetings so secret is to contribute to like candid debate while maintaining privacy. Like basically, according to the rules of the meeting, the attendees are entitled to use information gained at the meetings, but they can't attribute that information to any one speaker. And so this keeps privacy while like still kind of encouraging debate. But this is precisely what feeds the conspiracy theories about what exactly happens in that place. Because even if information does end up coming out, no one actually knows who said it. And if you can't attribute a piece of information to someone that seems kind of like a sketchy piece of information, then it's like, you're missing out on what that very powerful person's intentions could be. So for example, if something
Mm.
from the Bilderberg meeting leaks that it's like someone at the meeting said that there's a big war coming. Like, wouldn't you like to know which one of the 12 presidents sitting there said that about their own country? Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of weird. Like, they find some way where, like, even if information is leaked, like, I don't know, no, it's not attributed to any one person. Like, I don't know how that would work, but that's a thing. So,
That's very interesting. I wonder too if it could be caused by economic interests, where they're talking about, how it's like supposed to be illegal to like know maybe that a certain stock is going to drop before it does.
oh yeah.
Um,
So yeah, that's basically the conspiracy theory around the Bilderberg group, which is that just use common sense. People theorize that the elites that meet there, which is a lot of heads of state and powerful diplomats and rich people that own corporations, meet there for really more their own personal nefarious benefit rather than any actual like diplomatic free market Western capitalism trying to keep the peace bullshit. And so that's spooky enough on its own because it's just like, oh, that's corrupt and awful. However, the theory kind of elevates when you start talking about what some people believe, which is that they don't just do that. They don't just personally like benefit themselves as far as like, I don't know, like stocks, money, transfers, deals, shit like that, but more like they meet to actually plot how they're going to take over the world in this kind of totalitarian, authoritarian manner through a new world order. They meet to discuss basically the plot line, like how the blueprint of how they're going to take over the world, which is, a big claim.
How
But
long are these meetings? Is it like, yeah, let's have an hour-long check-in. How's taking over the world
It's
going?
a couple days at a time.
So that's why. That is wild.
Yeah.
That's like really intense.
Right, and nothing comes out of there. It's like a sealed fucking box, and so it's kind of weird, right? And I mean, the thing is that like no actual information comes out from these meetings that would make people think that. It's just the fact that they happen, and that they happen for the amount of time that they happen, and that they happen every year, and that they happen with such powerful people that makes people draw that conclusion. And honestly, I mean, I don't think it's a far out conclusion.
Oh, totally. I mean, here's the thing. Are you gonna get a bunch of scummy million/billionaires, and I say scummy because I'm sorry, but you have to be scummy to get that wealthy. Are you going to get them all to sit in one room together for 2 days? I seriously doubt that they enjoy one another's company when their intention is to keep world peace. Here's my thought. No. I feel like at the least there's some kind of like economic interest there for them, and at worst, this is interesting. New World Order. They want to take over the world. This is why we have to eat the rich before they can do it, y'all. Eat the rich. Eat the rich. Eat the rich. Okay.
Anyway, welcome all to Communist Talk, episode 1. No, who are we kidding? Episode 79. in our deepest of hearts. No, listen, so kind of in that vein, I also wanted to touch on a slightly different but very much related subject, which is the deep state. And this all, I know this is kind of a convoluted episode, but trust us, peeps, this all falls under the New World Order conspiracy theory. The Bilderberg meeting, the deep state, some of the shit that even Sunny touched on with the leaked CIA documents is related. So it's basically kind of the idea here is that there are underground forces at play that are trying to solidify their ulterior motives through nefarious avenues to take over the world and fuck us all over. That's basically what this episode is kind of painting. So as far as the deep state is, or if you've ever heard the term like state within a state, that's also what this means. It's basically a type of government that's made up of networks of power that operate independently of actual like nations, like government, like their political leadership. And this, deep government within the actual government pursues its own agenda and goals, and sometimes is, from what I understand, is alleged to influence the actual operating government so that they operate in the secret government's advantage. So, okay, here's what's funny. I knew about this term like 5 years ago, but since like in a couple years ago, I remember Trump talking about the deep state in like one of his rallies, and I'm like, I cannot believe that he's talking about this. Both because it's so wild to like see a president talk about this, but also because I thought it was kind of an obscure conspiracy theory. But honestly, if there was one place where this would be happening, it would obviously be at a government level. And if he's the president, like he would be the person to know if there's a deep state in the US. So it's just kind of insane. Like, he literally said the deep state is trying to X and Y and Z. And so Like he's saying it's real, so this is not really like a conspiracy theory, I guess. But like,
Mm.
I don't know. It's kind of insane. I mean,
The thing is, though, that Trump has definitely not been honest about a lot of stuff. So I don't know if that's him like riling people up or like revealing deep state secrets. I don't know, but that is interesting.
I mean, listen, I don't know that. I mean, yeah, is he a pathological liar? Yeah, but I can trust him. So I'm gonna say that the deep state is real. And no, I mean, it's funny because I mean, it probably isn't because the way he painted it was the way the actual conspiracy theories about this paint the deep state is that it very much holds a lot of power because of the people who are within it. It holds a lot of power
Mm.
to control the operating government, the operating heads of state, the presidents, the the Senate, the whatever, and they kind of treat them as puppets. And so that's kind of how the conspiracy has existed for decades about what a deep state is. The way Trump described it is almost as like an adversarial like entity that is just as powerful as him and is kind of trying to derail him with these like I don't know like swashbuckling shenanigans, which sounds kind of almost adventurous, and that's really not how the conspiracy actually goes, right? He made it sound like, oh, they're trying to stop me from doing this, but I'm smarter than them. I'm one step ahead of them. And when you actually look at like actual like conspiracy theories about deep states that have existed in like the Soviet Union or China, like it's not like that. It's not adversarial. It's not
Mm.
equal. It's very much the deep state has you in their grasp and you're a fucking puppet. So
Interesting.
maybe
So if
it
there were
doesn't
a
actually
deep
exist here.
state, he wouldn't even know about it.
One, precisely. Unless I mean it was the kind of puppetry where
Unless, oh yeah.
you're a puppet and you're just forced to not say anything about it. But I mean,
Mm.
but some puppet governments don't know they are puppet governments, according to some deep state conspiracy theories.
That's really interesting. So it could be, but I mean, if that were the case, then I feel like he would know he couldn't speak about it. But
Right.
it could be that Trump is part of the New World Order, big billionaire, who has been leading the deep state up until now, and that is how he became president.
No way.
That's just like
Absolutely no way.
having fun
No.
at that point. I mean, I don't believe that at all.
No.
But
He's not that smart.
um,
No. No. I mean, he's definitely you know how there's like what like 7 different types of intelligence. He definitely has like very high like interpersonal intelligence. Like the guy knows how to
yeah,
rail people up
I was
and
about to
have
say
yeah.
communication. Yeah.
But I don't know. Well, I mean, I do know. He's not very analytical. He's not very. There's just no way what you said is true, basically. Yeah, he's not that kind of smart. So, JF Bezos though, oh for sure. I'm sure he's at these meetings. You know, because there's more than one type. There's the Bilderberg meetings, but there's also something I might or might not have time to talk about, which is the Bohemian Grove, like get together, which is another one of these like elites get together, but in this case it's at a campground in like the redwood forest for a weekend, and they like do ritualistic shit that has been leaked to the public, so we know they
Ooh.
actually do it, but it was supposed to be a secret. So there's a bunch of
Midsommar
these
vibes
meetings.
only.
Yeah, so I'm sure Jeff Bezos is attending all of these, and he's like, "Oh, well, how can I make 200 more billion? I'm poor." So anyway, but Trump, no, I don't think so. I think he's
Mm.
too busy, like, like I don't know, like eating what is it, like 4 cheeseburgers a day? What was it?
Oh
I'm
my
pretty. There
god.
was like a document that leaked that was like the person eats 4 cheeseburgers a day and like 2 Diet Cokes. So anyway, that's
God.
the deep state. I don't think there's a deep state in the US, and here's why. Because Trump uttered the words deep state out loud. That's why.
Mm.
um, I think in an actual deep state, everything is so tightly controlled. There's just no way that would happen. There's just no way someone like him would even rise to power because he's not easily manageable. That man is far too volatile. So
Yeah.
I think
I think that's a really good point. Yeah.
yeah, I don't think there's a deep state here, but I think I mean I'm not saying deep states are good. I'm definitely not saying that. But I'm saying I guess the one downside of not having one is that everything isn't tightly controlled and it's all kind of just chaotic and out in the wind, and people that are very volatile can come to power, which
Yeah.
it's great that democracy still exists in the US, kind of debatable, yeah.
Yeah.
But the downside of that is this. So
Yeah, and it's also interesting. I sat in on like I guess like a foreign relations. I guess you call it international studies. I sat in on an international studies class one time. There's a whole story behind this. It was being held for middle schoolers, but it was being held by a really, really incredible PhD student, because I worked for this expensive education company. And he was talking about government and democracy, and he was like, well, you have India and China, both huge populations, developing nations, and India has essentially focused on trying to do democracy, right? They've had elections and everything. China has completely swept that to the side and has a totalitarian government, or like at least led by one person / group, very clear direction. And he was like, here's the thing, right? China, because they have very, very clear direction and specific goals, and they don't have to argue and come to compromises to figure out what they're going to do before they do it, has made a ton of economic progress. That said, though, they're also doing really sketchy things. We all know there's human rights violations there. Meanwhile, India is doing things the good old-fashioned way of democracy, but it's taking them a lot longer to develop economically. And he was kind of talking about, like, you can argue both ways. You could argue that China's is more ethical because they've lifted literally 1 billion people out of poverty over the course of 30 years with their economic development. Versus with India, like, they haven't developed as quickly, and that means, like, you know, less food for more people, essentially. Really interesting argument. But basically, the US, as a democratic country, just deals with every 4 years you take on a different direction, you know? And it's really hard to say, like, okay, we want an education system, for example, that that does X next thing, and then after 4 years of you trying to do X next thing, there's new leadership, and you've got to turn it around. And,
but you see, the problem isn't democracy. The problem is the specific way that the U.S. alone, specifically this one country, employs it. We have the Electoral College. We, like, that's such a fucking mess. Like, here's the thing. We actually, especially in modern times, we actually have not really actually been switching directions every 4 years. Like, Obama was in power for 8 years, and Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. Like, like the country is clearly leaning Democratic, and not only that, and right, it's clearly leaning Democratic, and it was only because of the Electoral College that this guy came into power. And not only that, which is an outdated institution that we should get rid of, by the way. Not only that, but like the fact that, like, senatorial representation, like, you have a place like Wyoming, right? Which, like, Norris, like, disrespect to our Wyoming stands, we love you, but Wyoming has, like, what, 3 people and 20 cows in it, and it has 2 senators, and so does California. Like, it has, like, 30 million people. Like, that is insane. And guess what most Californians are? Left-leaning. So, no, the country doesn't go in a different direction because people are so indecisive. Therefore, maybe we should argue for an authoritarian, like, path forward.
No, I'm definitely not arguing for the authoritarian government, but I think there's like a. But
that's the extreme conclusion to what you're saying. I'm not saying you specifically are saying that, but I'm saying, like, you know, therefore we should argue for a less democratic, I guess I should say, path forward. And it's like, no, what we're doing, it's fine. It's just that the kind of middleman institutions with which we're employing our democracy are fucked up. They don't work.
I don't know though, because. But the Senate thing, that's a very fair argument. But that's been an argument, like, as long as the U.S. has been a country. Because then you would have a state like Rhode Island, which is literally smaller than, smaller than most huge cities, and they would get, like, you know what, 1 representative max.
Yeah, but that's okay. I mean, a state like Rhode Island, state rights are important. Like, states should be just as autonomous as they've always been. If we end up changing senatorial representation, they should still be able to do whatever the fuck they want. The only difference is that Rhode Island can impact the decisions of a country moving forward into its future with its 1 million people. You know, the same way that, like, California is gonna. Like, that's so unbalanced. That's so unfair. Like, it's not my fault that you live in Rhode Island. Fuck you. So, like, I mean, I know you love Rhode Island, but, it's more like, I mean, it's not my fault that you have some kind of inferiority complex because you live in a tiny state and you think you should have as much representation as a place like fucking California, which is, like, the 3rd largest GDP in the world or something like that. Like, that's not my fault. I mean, just get over that and realize that a place like that shouldn't have as much representation as somewhere where 1/10 of the fucking country lives. Like, no.
I mean,
anyway.
Yeah. It's fair. I just think it's tough because it comes down to, like, urban versus rural interests, and as much as I as much as I don't agree politically necessarily with people who live in more rural areas, I also think it's a fair point that the two areas are very separate, and I don't want to like, because the whole point of the electoral college is making sure that folks who live in rural areas are also represented. And it's true when you have like 10 million people who live in one place and like vote the same way, and then you weigh that against 1 million people living like spread out across the rest of the state. Most times that 1 million will be outvoted for like governor and other things. So
I mean, yeah, but isn't that kind of the way democracy works? If most of your population leans one way politically and you're working on a majority-based decision-making mechanism, well, that's kind of how a majority decision-making mechanism works. The majority wins. Like, hello?
I mean, yeah, but technically, I mean, here's the thing. Technically, we live in partially a republic, right? Because we have representatives
Right.
instead of a direct democracy where we like have to vote on every single proposition in our area or something. But I don't know. The thing is that people made arguments the opposite way when people just tend to change their arguments on these things once their party is being smeared. Like, let's say that rural people who lived in rural areas were mostly Democrats who were very progressive, and then the people who lived in cities were mostly like opposite leaning. I think it's just I just worry about partisan politics coming into like how we form our government when that's not. I don't know. You know what I mean? I just think that I see these arguments. I see people switch places on these arguments too much based on like what happened in the most recent election cycle.
I mean, I think my own personal experience is very anecdotal because I'm just one person and it's not super important. I know that my way of thinking is kind of constant throughout time, but I do agree with what you're saying because I do see that a lot too. So I understand how generally you would feel that way. So yeah. Sis, let me move on.
This is amazing. We've been on such tangents, but this is a fun conversation. This is great. Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say, okay, so something else I wanted to touch on about the New World Order is people, when the pandemic started, were like, and actually this thought did cross my mind because I'm a crazy person. Okay, this pandemic is going to be used to impose martial law in the US. Like, there were dead-ass people who were like, that's what's going to happen. It's all a farce. It's all fake. It's a facade. They're trying to keep us home. Somehow that's going to make it easier for them to, exert even more power over us and blah, blah, blah. Something that people pointed out that I thought was super duper interesting was, well, actually, I mean, this is a fact. This isn't really a conspiracy theory. Is the fact that, already that even if this wasn't to implement martial law in places, it's definitely still to the benefit of a lot of very scummy people, because people point out that while a lot of like grocery stores have had to close, a lot of like physical retail spaces have had to close, Amazon is like making fucking bank out of the pandemic, and like it just hired like 100,000 more employees to like fulfill their orders, because like people are not just order everything online, and like people almost wonder like, oh, did like Jeff Bezos invent coronavirus? Which definitely not, but still a funny thought. So I mean it's funny, like Jeff Bezos doesn't have to invent coronavirus for the situation to be scary. It's honestly scary enough on its own that someone can be so scummy that it's like, this is my time.
No,
you know,
totally.
when like people are like,
and like not give their employees proper pay or like benefits,
or like medical
they're
leave.
literally like making billions more. Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, like, trust us, people. Reality surpasses fiction when it comes to just like terror.
Yeah,
So
I'm gonna forge Bezos' will and kill him. You can have me recorded saying that right now.
Wait, what did you say? I didn't catch that.
I'm gonna forge Jeff Bezos' will and kill him. This is on the record now. So if I go on trial, I'm totally done for.
But yeah, I mean that's totally something people talked about. I know this is something we touched on a different episode, but like the 5G towers, like cellular towers, people thought those were spreading coronavirus. Well, some people took that a step further and connected that to being like, yeah, they're spreading it because they want everyone infected. I often don't know who people mean by they, but you know, they want more people infected because that like is gonna kill people who can't, like, who don't have access to treatment, or like basically like lower class. And that's good because the new world order wants to, like, one, depopulate the earth a little bit because there's too many people, and two, like, leave the rest like sickly or something from like long-term effects of coronavirus even after you are cured of it. And because like they'll be sickly even after they're cured, whoever remains on the planet, they'll be easily used as like slave labor. And I'm like, I
Here's
mean,
the thing, though. Here's the thing. The coronavirus started in China, right? Like,
right.
first of all, if it were someone American setting it off on purpose in China, I feel like they would do it in a way so that it would stay in China to, benefit America or whatever. Then, if someone in China were purposefully doing it to hurt America, I don't think they would start it in China. They'd start it in America and then close China off really quickly. So
But
I just
here's
think the fact that it's so international speaks to,
But
like,
Sonny, no, you're thinking
mm,
about it the wrong way. Like things like the Bilderberg Group and the Bohemian Grove, these are not just American, like corporation
mm-hmm.
owners and heads of state. Like they're from all over the world. So
So it's a new world
regardless,
order thing. Interesting. I did
exactly. So
watch
it
a
doesn't.
video about it, but yeah.
So it doesn't matter if it started in China or wherever. It's fine by them wherever it starts, as long as it's only a certain kind of people that die, i.e., people that can't get access to treatment or can just move out of their houses in New York to like a state that's less populated to escape the pandemic. Um,
That is really interesting and funny. I also saw a video that was a lot. I saw a lot of comments on it talking about how if they come out with a corona vaccine, they won't take it because it's going to be like the mark of the beast. Um,
yeah, yeah.
and I like don't know what to say because I know. I mean, people will believe what they want to believe, and that's totally fine. But honestly, if you're concerned about like powers taking over the world right now, here's like a very real name that you might not have heard. Xi Jinping. Who is it,
Yeah.
right?
Winnie the
Literally
Pooh, you
the
mean?
prime minister of China. Like, just say, like, okay, so the US has had the top GDP in the world for the past, however many years, 50 years. And along with that economic power has come a lot of power in other places. And I don't think people realize, so we're talking about a conspiracy theory with a bunch of English-speaking billionaires coming together to take over the world, right? But they
Right.
actually wouldn't be able to do it without, like, some Chinese business people in the mix right now, because China's GDP is now as high as the US's, if not beginning to surpass it. Like, we are in a period right now where there's a transition of world power from one country to another. And it's very rarely that a period like that passes without some kind of war breaking out, actually. This is something else that came up in that class that I sat in on. But basically, if you're trying to worry about people taking over and stuff, worry about China's totalitarian government along with huge economic power that is, I mean, I could list a bunch of examples that is literally just starting to exert influence in different parts of the world. So total rant on China from me there, I'm sorry. But it's just so funny to think
No.
about these like Western-focused conspiracy theories. Like, no, a few English-speaking men literally don't have the capability of taking over the world anymore. Like, honestly, they need
Right,
like a
right, right.
translator or something. Like,
We're just very ethnocentric, and we don't really think about China. But I've definitely seen documentaries about how they basically can like face scan literally anyone from a distance on the street, and like even if you're jaywalking, like there'll be a big brother voice style like thing on like this street that will tell you like stop jaywalking, get back to the sidewalk, and like your face will be shown on this huge fucking screen on the street. This is a thing. This is a thing in
yeah,
Shanghai. Yeah, it's
that's
fucking
insane.
insane.
Yeah.
And like your whole identity, like the way you travel, the way you shop, eat, like watch shit, is all tied to this like basically your social security number in China. It's fucking
Mm-hmm.
insane. You're
Totally,
surveilled all the
totally.
fucking time.
They're
So,
thinking about setting up a Black Mirror style like social rating system too.
oh yeah,
Um,
totally. I mean,
well,
wait, actually,
yeah,
that's already a thing. They're thinking of making it more intense, but that's been a thing for a while. And
yeah.
if you speak ill of Jinping, of Xi Jinping,
Oh yeah.
you get the
No,
police to visit your house.
if you just show a Winnie the Pooh sticker or something, because he's
Oh
been
yeah,
compared to Winnie the Pooh a lot,
and
like
he
you can
hates it.
get in
Yeah.
serious trouble. No, and that's the thing. Like, if there's anything to be scared of. That said, though, I will just take a moment to note this is the Chinese government we're talking about, not the Chinese people. I think too often we'll conflate the two and like
Yeah.
dehumanize Chinese people who are like great everyday people just trying to like live and be happy like anyone else. Who, if they do support their government, have their own reasons for doing that. This is a government that, again, has seen billions of people rise out of poverty because of the economic development that they've seen. So when people
Right.
in China say they're happy with the government, it's because they now have food to eat, not because they
Right.
like support totalitarian regime, you know? So
Also, fun
that's an
fact.
important note. Yeah?
Very true, by the way. Very valid point. Christopher Robin, the movie, was supposed to like be released in
Yeah.
China, but like the government, because they censor movies, right? They were like, okay, well, you have to take out all of Winnie the Pooh from it, and Disney was like, we can't do that, so they just didn't release it in China.
So insane.
I want to leave on that note because I think it's a little cheerier than what we were talking about. Just fun fact, yeah. But anyway, that was our episode, everyone. If you have any future episode ideas, please do let us know by DMing us at Talk Scary on Instagram and Twitter, or at Scary Talk on our Facebook page. We can even do a second part of this if you want us to. There's so much to talk about. Yeah, anything else, Sunny?
Thanks for coming to Current Events in China Talk 101. Yeah, I feel like this is
Yep.
just so off topic, but it was a really fun episode. Thank you all for listening.
So remember, the fuck. I mean, a couple of things. One, the Mothman is real. Two, don't eat any large meals before bed. Three, Tara Reid has been in 6 Sharknado movies. 4, China is coming for us. And 5, I don't know. Fear the Bohemian Grove. Everyone, be safe out there. We love you. Thank you for listening. Good night.
Good night.